How is everybody doing today? Natalie Madison here of Artisan Cakes, where we strive to give you the tools and the knowledge to build your passion for baking. And today we're talking about glossy buttercream, and I've been playing a little bit. Last night's class was a blast. We created glossy buttercream, and we used Gigi Cake Craft's recipe with a few modifications. And I had plenty left over, so I thought maybe today I could do a little piping snippet. Glossy buttercream is pretty darn amazing. I really love the look of the flowers that I get. I love how finely detailed the petals are and how opaque they seem to be. Like, I feel like I could see light through these guys. They're so fine and so pretty, and they make for beautiful cakes. One thing I had to do was modify my piping tip before I got started with the Gigi Cake Craft Glossy Buttercream. American and Wilton, Ateco, the piping tips are, they've got large openings, and that's so that we can feed thicker American buttercream icing through it without it getting all cloggy and weird. But this glossy buttercream can go through a real fine cut in any of our piping tips. So the first thing I had to do was modify it. So I did that by taking a pair of pliers and squeezing this closed until it was a much thinner shape. Much thinner, finer detail, which I love about this. Glossy buttercream, we did have leftover from last night's class. When I am working that buttercream, if after I've refrigerated it, sometimes the liquid breaks free from the buttercream itself. So I had to throw it back in the mixer and just whip it back up until all of the liquid was reabsorbed back with the butter. And now I have beautiful, fine piping details again. So I've corrected my buttercream and I'm ready to start piping something. And I thought maybe we could do just a basic buttercream rose. And I like to use the larger rose nails from Wilton. They come in a pack of like 5 different sizes, and I love this big guy. I put just a little dab of buttercream on top, place my wax or parchment paper on top of that, and now I have the ability to pipe a flower, and if I love it, I keep it. I put it in the freezer, and then I just use it on my next cake. If I don't love it, I put it back into the bowl of scrap buttercream to be reworked and done again. So let's begin with my basics for piping a buttercream rose. I'm gonna go really fast. Generally, this is a process that we teach over the course of an hour and a half, mastering the buttercream rose. We go through step by step by step with you. So this is a fast sped up version of this. I begin by piping a nice size like Hershey's Kiss base right onto my parchment. And I like it to be wide at the bottom to support the weight of the petals above. Also, I keep a towel close at hand because I want to constantly clean that tip off. Once I have that base built, now it's time for me to start building petals around it. Before I do that, let's talk about positioning of your hands and the use of the bag, the piping bag. So the first thing I'm going to say is, like, most beginner decorators have a tendency to fill their bag up and they want to squeeze from way back here. But doing so, you put a ton of pressure toward the front part of the bag and you have to squeeze really hard. That often results in blowouts, or you might lose a tip, might pop off, the whole coupler may come out. You also put a ton of strain and fatigue on your wrist muscles this way. So what I tell everybody is to split that distance and just put enough icing that will be supported by the 4 fingers leading up to the piping tip. Next, the piping tip has an up and a down. The base of the piping tip is this deep teardrop. It's fatter. That's the part that's always going to make contact with our buttercream base, our Hershey's Kiss size base here. The pointy tip is what makes the fine details at the top of the ruffles. It's always going to be pointing upward or away from the base. When I am piping the flowers, I'm going to be talking about hand position. We've got perpendicular, which is straight up and down. We also have a 45-degree, and we can lay it down flat. I might even ask you to curl inward some, and all of that is done with wrist motion. I call this the cake decorator's workout. We basically do curls as we're doing our cake decorating. And I have to say, these muscles in here feel it today, all right? So curls, we're gonna go inward slightly, straight up and down, outward at a 45, and then flat. When I start my first round of petals, it really is just a conical shape here at the top. So I'm going to split my bag, make sure that the larger portion of that teardrop is what's going to make contact with the top surface of my blob, my Hershey's Kiss. And I'm going to stay mostly on the back side of this blob. And you like that? Technical terms, blob. I'm going to position the bottom of the teardrop down into the mass, and I'm going to do my first curl. I'm going to curl that tip inward slightly. As I squeeze, I'm going to turn my rose nail, not move my right hand, and I create this little conical shape right on top. One of the biggest challenges new piping decorators have is to not move their hand. It's all about how we turn that little rose nail. If I start piping and I start moving my hand, I drag the icing with the back of my tip and I ruin my pretty delicate petals. Instead, I want to turn my rose nail while leaving my hand in position. And that's what allows the pretty petal to curl around without jabbing into that petal. Also, I'm right-handed, but I have some ambidextrousness. Is that a term? I don't know. Is that a term? Ambidextrousness? You just keep adding sisses on there and it's fine. So I can work with either side, either hand, but I'm more comfortable piping with my right hand, which is also the one I choose to write with. I prefer to work on the back side of that rose instead of the front. Some people want to go across in front of them, but for me, for some reason, it's easier for me to go from behind that rose toward the front, toward me. But that's going to be a matter of preference. And we work both directions in our classes, our full-length classes, so that you have an opportunity to try both and determine which one works better for you. So I have the beginning of my little rose base, and all I did is when I started my second row, I opened up my wrist just a little bit. So I took, and instead of being an inward curl, I opened it up pretty much straight up and down. And I start by piping. I insert that base in, that little teardrop bottom, into my icing, and I start piping and turning my rose nail. And then to release it, I stop piping, stop the squeezing, and then come straight down. And now I have another petal. This process continues. And now, instead of being inward or straight up, I'm going to turn my wrist a little bit more toward the outside. But keep in mind that teardrop always stays embedded into my base. And I'll create several little petals in a U shape. What do I mean by U shape? It starts down here at the bottom, goes up slightly, and then ends. So there's a little bit of an uptick to my hand movement. So there's one set of pretty petals, and now I could stop here if I want to, but I'm going to keep on going. I like to fill up all of that base. I'm going to start again behind me, like on the back side of that rose, because it works better for me. And I'm going to pipe several larger petals to fill in that gap. And I may have enough room to do one more set. So now I'm rolling my hand all the way out flat. The point's almost touching the parchment paper. And I'm squeezing that buttercream to fill the gap. And obviously as I come down, there's less of the U shape and more of just straight across. That is the basics of creating a buttercream rose. That is what we spend an hour and a half teaching in our Mastering the Buttercream Rose class. But I especially love how beautiful and delicate it looks using the Glossy Buttercream from GG Cake Craft. So pretty. Now, I'm gonna make a ton of these. I slide them off of my rose nail and put them right into the freezer. That way when I'm ready to play, I just peel it off the parchment paper and put it right in place, add my leaves and my little details, and I'm good to go. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to shoot them through the messaging. You can also find this live on our Crowdcast events. We stream a handful of events and a few little live videos straight through Crowdcast. You can follow it so you always get alerts as soon as we go live. You can also watch replays so you don't have to catch it in action. You can find our videos on our YouTube channel, on our Vimeo on demand. We have full-length tutorials, and all of our handles are Art is in Cakes. So you can find us at Art is in Cakes. All right, I hope you enjoyed that little speed method of how to create buttercream roses. I'm gonna lead you off with just a quick shot of those pretty little flowers. Here we go.